Heyo, it's Omnidog here. Thanks for tuning in to Omnidog's Vault to hear me talk about Superman books. My friend Sam from New Zealand told me that I should do a video before the movie. This is about the James Gunn's Superman movie coming out in about a week, so that people could get familiar with the character before the movie. So we don't have a lot of time before the movie, so these are books that are good before and after the movie. But thank you, Sam, for that great idea. I appreciate it. So I wanted to pick books that were easy to get into if you're familiar with the character, and even if you're not familiar with the character, you can jump into them. I have them sort of ordered in what I think is a good reading order, but you can pick, if a book sounds particularly good to you, you can always just jump right in to any book, really, for Superman. And I also will have, because some of these, as you'll see, are, actually all of them are collected editions, but I'm not suggesting you go out and buy all these collected editions. There's Hoopla, there's your local library, there's the DC app. So I will, in the description box down below, I will put what the issue numbers are for these particular books. I'll do that at the times when the books were talked about. Like the first one we're going to talk about, Superman Smashes the Klan. This is by Gene Yang, who's an amazing writer. I haven't read anything by him yet that I haven't loved. With art by Gurihiru. My understanding is there are two people from Japan who do this. It's pretty recognizable art and really cool art. And the interesting thing about this is that it's based on a 1946 radio serial. Not cereal like eat, a serial, S-E-R-I-L, S-E-R-I-A-L, radio serial, ongoing radio back in the 40s. So this was a pretty interesting thing for them to do back in the mid 40s, for them to have Superman taking on the Klan. It was called Klan of the Fiery Cross, so they didn't come right out and say Ku Klux Klan, but that's who it's based on. And it's as much about the immigrants, the Chinese teenagers and the Chinese parents and the Chinese community, and the racists that want them out because they've moved from Chinatown into the center of Metropolis, where of course they have not only trouble making friends, but they have enemies that have just popped up. And it is a Superman book, but it's also a community book. How the community can rally around people and for the greater good, rally around and support them. Superman definitely plays an important part in this book, but it's really up to the citizens themselves to figure out that Klan bad, being nice to your neighbors good. So wonderfully written. This is a good starter book, or a good book to read anytime you want. Love this book. You will notice that there are a couple of origin stories in my selections. For better or for worse, the origin stories are some of the best stories that have been written about Superman. And this one's by Mark Waid and Lionel Francis Yu, who actually signed my book, which was nice of him, when I saw him at Heroes Con. And this is by Mark Waid, and it has it has a lovely twist at the end. When I first read this book, I said that if I worked for Warner Brothers, I would have just taken this book, set it down on some producer's desk and said, take this entire book and make it the movie. The movie. Just have it be your Superman movie. It's so well written, so thoughtful, so interesting, so human, and so touching. And Mark Waid just is such a brilliant writer. Now, is the ending as twisty and interesting as my favorite book ever, Irredeemable? No, but it's close. It's an excellent ending. So you have your usual cast of characters here. Lois Lane, Perry White, Jimmy Olsen, and of course, Luther. You will notice a theme that goes throughout this video, and that's going to be Luther. That's pretty much the main foe that Superman has to deal with. And he is just as evil and awful in all of these books as you've ever thought. He's also predictably human. Besides being brilliant, he, instead of overcoming his emotions with logic, he lets his emotions take over. And so while he may be brilliant, he also flips out a lot. So this is great because it's a great melding of Clark and Superman, which is also what the next book is, and that is Superman for All Seasons. This is the absolute, so I'm not suggesting you go out and spend the money on the absolute. I did, but this is the book that actually made me a fan of Tim Sale's art. This is by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale, and it really, I like it early in this reading order because besides Birthright, which I just showed you, this shows Clark down on the farm as he's growing up in Smallville, and his parents, of course, Ma and Pa Kent play a huge role in this, and it shows Superman to be vulnerable and he has feelings too, and they can be easily hurt. He can be, well, not easily, but they can be hurt, and he can feel insecure at times too. So this is a great book to read. It goes through all the seasons: fall, winter, spring, autumn, fall, winter, spring, summer, whatever the seasons are. Of course, and here's Luther. And it's got one of the most touching scenes right here, is where he comes home to the farm after having experienced Metropolis for a while. This isn't the scene yet. This is what leads up to it. But he realizes, he's lucky to have both his parents alive, and he decides he says, I think I need to stay here in Smallville for a while. Even a grown Superman needs his parents and needs the town he grew up in and needs to feel connected to people. And this book does a wonderful job of that. And it does Tim Sale's art, which I used to not like. This is where it really won me over, and now I'm a huge Tim Sale fan. So this is a great book to read, batting third in this order. And speaking of Tim Sale, the next book, Superman Kryptonite. That's another thing you're going to notice as a theme throughout this, is Kryptonite, which is, I'm going to just assume you don't know. Kryptonite, he was born on Krypton. Krypton exploded, left radioactive rocks in its wake, and Superman gets deathly ill when a green kryptonite's near him. So Darwin Cook wrote this, and Tim Sale drew this. I'm not sure how much Darwin Cook laid out, because Darwin Cooke was also an excellent artist as well as writer. But it deals with this rock, this giant rock of kryptonite, as a sentient being is trapped inside it, and for a long time. And he is, the being is inextricably linked to the other Kryptonian on the planet, and that is Superman. So it deals interestingly with a casino. This one actually doesn't have a whole lot of Luthor. It does have some Luthor, but Gallo is the name of the bad guy in this, and he's come to Metropolis to build a casino, and the Kryptonite rock plays a big part in this, and has a wonderfully interesting ending. But Gallo, he's pictured here. This is Gallo. He is, he owns a lot of the police, the mayor, everybody in town. And so Perry White says, I need people I know are clean, who can't be bought. I figured that's you three. Jimmy Olsen says, you figured right, Chief. Lois says, just tell us what to do. And they're all scowling because they are the best of the best. They can't be bought. Clark, Lois, and Jimmy. And they're scowling because they're ready to tackle Tony Gallo. And it goes many, many different places that are really interesting. The Kryptonite rock itself is pretty darn interesting for a solid rock, but there, as I said, there's a sentient being inside it, and when the being is let loose, is released from the rock, then it becomes an extra part of an interesting story. So there are two stories going on here: taking down the casino owner because he's a filthy criminal, and then the kryptonite itself, what the kryptonite does to Superman, and what it houses in it as far as that interesting being. Speaking of kryptonite, this is the Kryptonite Nevermore saga from DC Finest. These are remarkably inexpensive. I've recommended before the Kryptonite saga, Kryptonite Nevermore saga, which is like forms the basis for this book. But this is the entire run back in 1970, 1971. Kryptonite Nevermore collects Action Comics 393 through 406, and Superman 233 through 238, and 240 through 246. And it also has some really boss covers from Neil Adams in it. And the reason I think this is so important is because kryptonite has existed in Superman canon for so long that this is the first really hard reboot DC does of Superman, and an accident in a lab turns all kryptonite on the planet harmless. And so Superman doesn't have to deal with kryptonite anymore, but he does have to deal with some other things that happen. It has wonderful art by Kurt Swan and Murphy Anderson, and as I said, Denny O'Neil writes the first hard reboot of Superman. Superman loses his powers momentarily, crashes down in the desert, and a sand creature is formed that seems to be absorbing his powers, Superman's powers. And it's pretty, even though it's from 1970, which puts it over 50 years ago, good heavens, it starts early, and then the issues start earlier than the Kryptonite saga, just to sort of give you a feel for what's been going on ahead of time. Because it's a reboot, Clark Kent doesn't work for the Daily Planet anymore. He works for television station now. Morgan Edge is in charge of the television station, and so Clark and Lois are now TV reporters. Or Kent is anyway. And when Superman falls, there's the impression he leaves in the desert when he inextricably loses his powers, and then here is the sand creature emerging. It makes for a really interesting story, and it's also an important story because, as I said, it's got the sand creature whose origins are revealed eventually, and it deals with a Superman that's doesn't have kryptonite as his weakness, but he deals with other weaknesses that are shown here. So it's very interesting what the sand creature eventually wants and how Superman finally resolves it. This is some of the best Superman. This is the best Superman from the time period, of course. Denny O'Neil just writes it wonderfully well. This is at the very beginning of the Bronze Age. So there is a lot of social consciousness in this. It's a lot of action too, of course. But Denny O'Neil was also doing Green Lantern, Green Arrow at the same time for the real social consciousness at the time. But it is really well done, very inexpensive, and a great way to read everything of the time period and get caught up on what Superman was like over 50 years ago and how it's still remarkably interesting. It does not read as difficult as some Silver Age, Golden Age books can. It's part of the Bronze Age beginning, the history of the beginning of the Bronze Age is that it was very readable and not super wordy, but got its ideas across without needing a whole. Now here, of course, there's some giant speech bubble, but the idea is that it dealt with things through not as many caption boxes and stuff like that. So I love this book, Superman, Kryptonite Nevermore. The next book, this is Absolute Superman by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. I'm not suggesting you go out and get this big chonker, although it is great. But there are two stories in here that are extremely interesting and have a great deal to do with learning more about Superman. And the DC app does not recognize if you type in a hardcover or softcover collection, it'll only do issues for right now. Hoopla does recognize if you type in a hardcover or softcover collection. This one's called Secret Origins, and it's worth reading. It's another origin story, and it deals a lot with Smallville and what it's like to go to Metropolis. The only reason I'm not suggesting you get the entire book is it deals with a lot of Legion of Superheroes who are, that's pretty advanced for anybody starting out right now. They're really good stories, but I don't know that I would recommend reading something like that right now until you get a little more Superman under your belt. Great origin story. It goes just as well with Birthright. They're told in completely different ways, but they're still very interesting and exciting and really fun. And the artwork is great. Gary Frank. I think this is the book that made me like Gary Frank's artwork. So, and Jeff Johns is certainly one of the best writers we are lucky enough to have in our lives, because he gets the characters that he writes, and he gets Superman. Now, did I just see there's a little bit of, okay, wait a second here. Is there a little bit of, oh yeah, there is a little bit of Legion of Superheroes in this, but am I right or am I wrong? I thought I saw the Legion in here. Whatever it is, don't worry about it. He also, Gary Frank draws Superman to look like Christopher Reeve as kind of to pay tribute to Christopher Reeve, which is really nice because he draws him, you know, amazingly great. Cat Grant's in this, General Lane's in this. Where did I see? Okay, maybe I didn't see. I see the. Okay, well, okay, I thought I saw the Legion of Superheroes, but I didn't. The other book to read in this, after you get a little more Superman under your belt, is Brainiac. I would say you could read this at any point after you read some other Superman, because there's a lot going on in this book that I think requires some background. It not introduces, but Supergirl plays a big role in this, and because she's the one who's completely terrified of Brainiac because she's had to deal with him before, and the way Jeff Johns portrays Brainiac is legit scary. I mean, he is a legitimately scary, looking like he's an unbeatable foe, and he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. I mean, the original cover for this is extremely creepy, but he's extremely dangerous, and Kara, Supergirl, is afraid of him, of Brainiac, and rightfully so. So I would read Brainiac a little bit down the line, maybe, not right away. The next book is one of the best Superman books ever. Actually, all these books are super awesome, and that's All-Star Superman. I think you should go out and buy this. This deals with Superman, Grant Morrison's Superman. He deals with him in his dying days. So this is Superman in his dying days because Luthor has managed to give him sun poisoning, and Frank Quitely's art, I think, is especially beautiful in this because he also dresses, the way he draws Clark Kent is like a big schlub, and you can really get the idea that there is no way those two people are the same people, Clark Kent and Superman. So he kind of goes through like the 12 trials of Hercules. He puts Superman through various tests, visiting, at one point Lois gets superpowers, and he's visiting, Clark Kent visits Luthor in jail, and this is one of Grant Morrison's most easily accessible books. It's very easy to understand. So this can be read at any time. The part where Superman literally talks a girl off the ledge and helps her get help is pretty moving and very real. So it's and it deals with a lot of kind of callbacks to the Silver Age, but you don't need to know those to enjoy this book. It's one of the best things. I have a lot of respect for Grant Morrison. This is one of the best things they've ever written. It's just brilliant and touching and exciting, and it checks all the boxes for a wonderful Superman book. But I think this is the best Frank Quitely's work has ever been. Some people think he's an acquired taste. I acquired a taste for him right away. I have always liked Frank Quitely's work, and Grant Morrison's writing about the last days of Superman, or are they? I don't know. That's one of those endings that is kind of, it seems very cut and dried, but maybe it's not, depending on the reader. The next book, I only have a little collection of what makes up the book. It's Kurt Busiek's Superman, which is out in a hardcover collection. And I have the books here that make up most of the first book. There's a second book coming out. And Kurt Busiek also knows how to write Superman. Superman's here after having he took a year off for reasons, and here he is being reintroduced to Metropolis, and it has a lot of his adventures. It has a lot. It's got a varied and wide and varied cast in it, but it's also pretty engrossing. It's really got a lot of, Kurt Busiek's another one of those great writers that we're lucky we have, because this deals with a lot of human interest stuff. It's not necessarily monster of the week, but it's very, very grounded and well written, and it contains, I'll have to write down the issues that the book contains. Book 1, and then book 2 comes out. I'll write down the issues that it contains too. See, this has Live Wire in it and some other Superman kind of older baddies, if you will. And it also contains, interestingly, it contains the first half of Camelot Falls, and so the second book contains the second half of Camelot Falls. And this is a pretty famous Superman story, and rightly so, because it is it is an amazing fantasy kind of where a being comes back and is from the future and is telling Superman what the future holds, and a vision that he gives Superman a vision of what the future's going to be like, no matter what Superman does. And of course, Superman's not willing to accept this, and it gets resolved in the second book, which contains Camelot Falls Part 2. And we get a really cool, in this first book, this book's out of print now, the deluxe edition of Secret Identity. But Busiek and Stuart Immonen's art, this is another kind of origin story. It deals with a guy named Clark Kent, who is very aware of the made-up character of Clark Kent and Superman. He's kind of sick of how people kind of tease him all the time. But then he acquires superpowers and actually becomes Superman. And this is a big twist, because he is in love with a woman who is not necessarily as Lois Lane has been portrayed earlier. And they have twin girls who manage to inherit his powers, and the way they deal with love, loss, freedom, lack of some freedom, depending on how you look at it. But it's just one of the best Superman stories you're ever going to read, and it's not like any other origin story. It's one of the most different and interesting origin stories because it's a completely different origin. It's how a guy named Clark Kent actually learns to become Superman when he inherits his powers or is somehow gifted his powers. The next book, this is the last book that I will recommend, except there's one more book that I'll recommend. This is one of the best things Tom King's ever written. This is one of the best Superman books ever written. The reason I'm suggesting it's so late in the game here is that it deals with a lot of characters like Darkseid that you may or may not know. It deals with a little girl that was captured and taken millions and billions of light years away from Earth, and Superman endeavors to bring her back. And Superman has to go through so many different trials and tribulations with Darkseid, with his, he gets split into two, like he becomes Clark Kent and Superman on a planet. He ends up saving somebody who on an alien planet, saving somebody, like right here where the being is saying, "I pray for an angel," and it's an almost can't win situation that somehow, well, I don't want to spoil it for you. It's a can't win situation. And so is what he has to deal with Darkseid. But he is relentless in his pursuit of getting that little girl back home. And the whole meaning of Superman is hope. To give people, to never lose hope. He's the symbol of hope and never giving up and perseverance. And this is 12, let's see, I feel like it's 12, it's only 6 issues? Well, they're pretty thick issues then. Up in the Sky, sorry, I think I forgot to say Up in the Sky is its name. And it's remarkable. It is remarkable what Superman accomplishes, and it's remarkable about how he never gives up and instills hope in everyone, especially this little girl. If this is one of the best things, I think this is one of the best comic books ever written. Now, if you read all those, then you'll be ready for one of my all-time favorite books, and that's Superman Space Age. Now, that is by Mark Russell and the fabulous team of Michael and Laura Allred. Now, this starts with American history, starting with like the Kennedy assassination. It goes through Watergate. It goes through several historical things in U.S. history. And it starts in the early 60s, stops in 1985 because that's when Crisis on Infinite Earths starts. And it tells the tale of the beginning of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, where all these various Earths actually end up dying, and what the Superman of this particular Earth, which seems to be our Earth, since that's where these historical events happen. But it also pulls on Lois and Clark's father's experiences during World War II, and they're pretty moving. I mean, this is really well written and brought to the page really nicely by Michael and Laura Allred. And what Superman actually means to me and means to other readers is more of that hope and perseverance, and not only not wanting to fail, but figuring out a way to succeed even when failure's imminent. And it is just a really brilliant book, but I wouldn't tackle it right away because it deals with an awful lot. Lex Luthor, of course, Brainiac, Lois Lane, the Joker, Batman. It's got a lot going on in it. That I feel like if you pick it up right away, I'm not sure you'll get all that you can out of it. And you really want to understand and get all the references in it. So this is what this video aspires to get you up to date so that you can, the ultimate goal is to read this book. Okay, I just came up with that, and that's actually not true. But I just can't say enough about this book. I have a video on it if you want to look back through my library about why this book's so important to me and why it made such an impact on me. It deals with Lois and civil rights movement. Lois is the main reporter at all these civil rights and historical events, the Kennedy assassination, Watergate, things like that. It's really a well-written book. So well written, well illustrated, and it's a lot of fun. So I hope you got something out of this. Even if you just are interested in one book, then I've done my job, because that's what I really want, is for you to read Superman before the movie or after the movie. If you're interested, these are the books that I would steer you towards, and these are the stories I would steer you towards. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Peace and love, and please treat others like you would like to be treated yourself. Peace and love.